Kindness without courage is self-betrayal. It is a velvet prison, lined with smiles and sealed with silence. It appears gentle, harmless, even noble, yet beneath its polished surface lives a quiet surrender. When kindness is stripped of courage, it ceases to be virtue and becomes appeasement. It becomes the art of shrinking oneself to preserve comfort. It becomes the habit of nodding when your mind resists, of agreeing when your conscience protests, of yielding not from generosity, but from fear. True kindness demands backbone. It demands the audacity to stand upright while remaining compassionate. Without courage, kindness bends too quickly. It kneels before pressure. It trembles before conflict. It disguises anxiety as empathy and calls compliance peace. But peace purchased at the cost of integrity is not peace. It is corrosion. There is a subtle terror in disappointing others, a quiet panic in being misunderstood. Many choose excessive niceness not because they are loving, but because they are afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of confrontation, afraid of being labeled difficult, harsh, or uncooperative. And so they soften their words beyond honesty. They dilute their opinions beyond recognition. They volunteer their time, energy, and spirit, until nothing remains but exhaustion wrapped in politeness. Courageous kindness speaks clearly. It says no without venom. It disagrees without cruelty. It refuses without apology. It understands that preserving truth is more important than preserving image. It knows that discomfort is not destruction. It recognizes that harmony built on dishonesty is merely delayed chaos. When you silence your convictions to maintain likability, you fracture something sacred within yourself. Each swallowed truth becomes a stone in the chest. Each forced smile becomes a crack in the foundation. You may appear agreeable, even admirable, but internally you erode. Resentment begins to bloom where authenticity once lived. Fatigue settles into your bones. You feel unseen, unheard, undervalued, yet you have participated in your own disappearance. Courage is not aggression. It is clarity with spine. It is warmth with firmness. It is the willingness to endure momentary tension for the sake of enduring. Self-respect. Kindness guided by courage does not aim to control how others feel. It aims to remain aligned with what is right. It refuses manipulation masked as need. It resists guilt presented as morality. It declines invitations that violate inner equilibrium. There is profound dignity in measured refusal. There is elegance in principled disagreement. When you respond with honesty rather than automatic accommodation, you teach others how to treat. You demonstrate that generosity is a gift, not an obligation. You show that compassion does not require self-erasure. Consider how often people exploit the excessively nice. They sense the hesitation. They notice the reluctance to say no. They press further, demand more, expect constant availability. Not always from malice, but from instinct. The world will lean on what does not resist. If you never assert limits, you will be stretched until you snap. Courage is the quiet reinforcement that prevents collapse. Self-betrayal rarely announces itself dramatically. It accumulates in small concessions. One unnecessary apology, one suppressed objection, one agreement that tastes bitter even as it leaves your lips. Over time, these fragments assemble into a version of you that feels foreign. You begin to wonder where your boldness went, where your fire dimmed, where your voice faded. Kindness rooted in fear seeks safety. Kindness rooted in courage seeks truth. The former asks, will they still like me? The latter asks, am I still aligned with my principles? One chases approval. The other protects integrity. Approval fluctuates like weather. Integrity endures like stone. There is a magnetic quality to courageous kindness. It commands respect without demanding it. It radiates steadiness. When you speak with calm conviction, When you offer help freely but decline exploitation firmly, you embody a strength that others recognize. They may not always agree with you, but they trust the solidity of your presence. To cultivate this strength requires introspection. It requires noticing the impulse to please at the expense of authenticity. It requires examining the discomfort that arises when conflict approaches. Instead of fleeing that discomfort, sit with it, observe it. Understand that it is merely sensation, not catastrophe. You can survive another person's disappointment. You can endure a raised eyebrow, a moment of tension, a misunderstanding. What you cannot endure indefinitely is the erosion of your own character. Every time you choose courageous kindness, you reinforce your inner architecture. You prove to yourself that you are capable of both compassion and firmness. You integrate softness with resolve. You become neither rigid nor malleable, but balanced. Balanced like a tree that bends in wind without uprooting, flexible yet rooted. This balance transforms relationships. It filters out dynamics built on convenience and invites those grounded in mutual respect. It clarifies expectations. It eliminates the unspoken resentment that festers when one party perpetually sacrifices. It replaces fragile harmony with authentic connection. Courage does not demand hostility. It does not raise its voice unnecessarily. It simply refuses to abandon truth for comfort. It chooses transparent speech over strategic silence. It accepts that being good does not require being agreeable at all times. Sometimes goodness stands alone. Sometimes it contradicts the crowd. Sometimes it risks misunderstanding. And yet, in that risk lies liberation. When you no longer contort yourself to preserve approval, your energy returns. Your words gain weight. Your gestures carry sincerity. Your yes becomes meaningful because your no exists. Your kindness becomes deliberate rather than reflexive. It flows from abundance rather than anxiety. To be kind with courage is to act from principle rather than pressure. It is to give without self-erasure. It is to serve without surrendering sovereignty. It is to love without losing alignment. It is to protect your inner citadel with the same devotion you offer to others. Comfort. Anything less is quiet treachery against. Approval is fleeting. Character is permanent. Applause evaporates faster than morning mist beneath rising sunlight. Compliments dissolve into memory before the echo of their sound has fully faded. The crowd that praises you today may question you tomorrow, and the same voices that elevate you can just as swiftly withdraw their admiration. To anchor your identity in approval is to build your foundation upon shifting sand, forever adjusting, forever negotiating, forever anxious. Approval is a currency minted in other people's minds. You cannot control its circulation. You cannot dictate its value. You cannot prevent its sudden devaluation. Yet many barter their integrity for it, trading convictions for claps, principles for popularity, authenticity for acceptance. They rehearse their personalities to fit the audience. They refine their opinions to avoid friction. They sculpt themselves into palatable versions, polished and presentable, yet internally fragmented. Character, by contrast, is architecture carved slowly through choice. It is constructed in private moments where no applause exists. It is revealed in decisions that cost comfort. It does not shimmer for attention. It does not beg for validation. It stands quietly, immovable, shaped by discipline, sharpened by honesty, strengthened by self-respect. Approval flatters the ego. Character fortifies the soul. When you chase approval, you surrender authorship of your life. You become reactive rather than deliberate. You measure your worth by expressions on faces, by tones in voices, by digital metrics and passing remarks. Every raised eyebrow unsettles you. Every silence feels accusatory. Every disagreement feels like exile. You become hypersensitive to perception, perpetually scanning for signs of acceptance or rejection. This vigilance exhausts the spirit. Character requires no audience. It thrives in solitude. It matures in unseen perseverance. When no one watches, character still chooses honesty. When no one applauds, character still chooses effort. When no one rewards, character still chooses restraint. It is the invisible spine that holds you upright when external affirmation disappears. Approval intoxicates quickly. It offers immediate gratification. It produces a surge of warmth, a momentary elevation, a rush of belonging. But like all intoxications, it fades, leaving behind dependency. You crave the next compliment. You anticipate the next acknowledgement. You modify your behavior to sustain the supply. The pursuit becomes cyclical and hollow. Character develops slowly. It demands patience. It demands sacrifice. It often feels unrewarded in the short term. Yet its dividends accumulate silently. Confidence rooted in character does not fluctuate with opinion. It does not spike with praise or collapse with criticism. It remains steady, grounded in self-trust rather than public endorsement. Consider how easily approval shifts. Trends evolve. Cultural standards pivot. Public sentiment transforms overnight. What was celebrated yesterday may be condemned today. If your identity is tethered to applause, you will twist with every gust of collective opinion. You will fragment yourself to maintain relevance. You will dilute your convictions to remain agreeable. Character resists such volatility. It is not rigid arrogance. It is principled consistency. It adapts when reason demands adaptation, not when popularity insists upon it. It listens to criticism without capitulating to noise. It evaluates feedback without surrendering integrity. Approval is external. Character is internal. External rewards are fragile because they depend upon variables beyond your command. Internal virtues are resilient because they originate from deliberate choice. When you prioritize character, you reclaim sovereignty over your worth. You cease outsourcing your value to strangers. You stop negotiating your principles for temporary inclusion. There is profound freedom in this shift. When approval loses its dominance, courage gains space. You speak more honestly. You act more decisively. You decline more confidently. You become less concerned with being liked and more committed to being aligned. This alignment produces a quiet magnetism far more powerful than superficial popularity. People may disagree with you, yet they sense your solidity. They may challenge you, yet they respect your consistency. Even those who withhold approval cannot easily dismiss authenticity anchored in character. Respect earned through integrity outlasts affection earned through accommodation. Character also shapes destiny. It influences habits, and habits shape outcomes. Discipline cultivated privately produces excellence publicly. Integrity maintained quietly establishes trust visibly. Reliability practiced consistently builds reputation organically. Reputation rooted in character endures far longer than reputation constructed through charm. Approval seeks admiration. Character seeks alignment. When admiration fades, the approval-driven individual feels diminished. When alignment persists, the character-driven individual remains grounded. The former experiences emotional turbulence tied to perception. The latter experiences steadiness tied to principle. This steadiness transforms adversity. Criticism becomes information rather than injury. Rejection becomes redirection rather than devastation. Silence becomes space rather than condemnation. Because character does not rely upon applause, it does not collapse in its absence. There will be moments when standing by your principles costs you popularity. moments when honesty disrupts comfort, moments when refusal disappoints expectation. In those moments, approval whispers seductively, urging compromise, suggesting subtle alteration, encouraging self-betrayal in exchange for inclusion. Character whispers differently. It reminds you of who you decided to be before applause tempted you otherwise. It recalls the standards you set in clarity before pressure clouded your judgment. It invites you to endure temporary discomfort for enduring self-respect. One path offers immediate validation and long-term instability. The other offers immediate resistance and long-term strength. Approval decorates the surface. Character fortifies the core. Surface admiration can coexist with inner emptiness. Core strength generates authentic confidence independent of applause. When you cultivate character deliberately, you construct an identity that does not tremble under scrutiny. You become less reactive to praise and less wounded by critique. You evaluate both through the lens of principle rather than insecurity. 2. Prioritize character is to invest in permanence over performance. It is to choose substance over spectacle. It is to value integrity over image. It is to recognize that while crowds disperse, conscience remains. While opinions fluctuate, principles endure. While applause fades, self-respect echoes quietly within. The chambers of your own awareness, shaping every future decision, influencing every future action, defining every future version of yourself. Boundaries protect virtue, not ego. They are not walls built from arrogance. They are foundations carved from self-knowledge. They are not weapons forged to control others. They are guardians stationed at the gates of your integrity. A boundary is a declaration whispered first to yourself. This is where my values stand. This is where my energy is preserved. This is where my conscience refuses compromise. Many misunderstand boundaries as hostility. They imagine sharp edges, cold distance, rigid detachment. Yet true boundaries are not expressions of pride. They are expressions of clarity. They arise not from superiority, but from responsibility. Responsibility to your time. Responsibility to your peace. Responsibility to the moral architecture that shapes your character. Without boundaries, virtue leaks. You may possess kindness, patience, generosity, discipline. But if you permit every demand to penetrate your schedule, every opinion to invade your thinking, every manipulation to bend your decisions, your virtues scatter. They become diluted. They become exhausted. They become resentful. What was once freely given becomes silently regretted. A boundary is the discipline that preserves purity of intention. Consider the difference between ego and virtue. Ego demands validation. Ego insists on dominance. Ego seeks to appear strong. Virtue seeks alignment. Virtue seeks justice. Virtue seeks harmony grounded in truth. When you establish a boundary rooted in virtue, you are not announcing superiority. You are safeguarding alignment. If someone pressures you into dishonesty, your boundary says no. If someone demands your time without respect, your boundary says enough. If someone attempts to weaponize guilt, your boundary remains unmoved. This refusal is not cruelty. It is moral hygiene. The absence of boundaries creates confusion. Others cannot see where you end and they begin. They assume access where none was consciously granted. They mistake your silence for consent. They interpret your flexibility as endless availability. Over time, this ambiguity breeds imbalance. You give disproportionately. You tolerate excessively. You absorb burdens that were never yours to carry. Virtue thrives in order, not chaos. Boundaries create order. They clarify expectations. They define responsibility. They communicate that generosity is intentional, not automatic. They protect your capacity to give sincerely rather than compulsively. Without them, you may appear selfless, Yet internally you feel drained, unseen, quietly agitated. Resentment is often the symptom of violated boundaries left unspoken. When you repeatedly override your internal signals to accommodate others, you train yourself to distrust your own needs. You begin to believe that self-neglect is noble. You confuse self-erasure with humility, but humility does not require self-destruction. True humility acknowledges both your value and the value of others. It does not elevate one at the expense of the other. A boundary is an act of self-respect that makes sustainable respect for others possible. Imagine a fortress not built to isolate, but to preserve what is sacred within. The gates open deliberately, not carelessly. Visitors are welcomed, yet rules are honored. This structure does not symbolize arrogance. It symbolizes stewardship. You are the steward of your mind, your time, your emotional energy, your ethical commitments. Without stewardship, virtue deteriorates under pressure. There will be moments when enforcing a boundary feels uncomfortable. Someone may react with disappointment. Someone may accuse you of selfishness. Someone may attempt persuasion wrapped in urgency. In those moments, ego tempts you to defend aggressively or to collapse passively. Virtue chooses steadiness. It explains calmly or remains silent confidently. It does not over-justify. It does not apologize for existing. Boundaries lose their strength when they are negotiated out of fear. If you state a limit, yet retract it at the first sign of disapproval, you teach others that persistence overrides principle. Consistency transforms boundaries from suggestions into standards. Not rigid, not unyielding without reason, but anchored. Anchored like roots that allow a tree to sway without falling. Boundaries also refine relationships. They filter out connections built on exploitation. They strengthen connections grounded in mutual respect. When people understand your limits, they interact with greater awareness. They recognize that your kindness is chosen, not extracted. They appreciate your presence because it is offered intentionally, not compulsively. Virtue cannot flourish in environments where it is perpetually trampled. A boundary says, I will not participate in what corrupts my character. It says, I will not sacrifice my peace to preserve appearances. It says, I will not dilute my convictions to avoid temporary discomfort. This stance is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is composed, measured, dignified. Ego inflates to protect pride. Virtue establishes boundaries to protect integrity. There is profound elegance in someone who knows their limits without hostility. Their speech carries weight because it is not desperate for approval. Their generosity feels sincere because it is not driven by obligation. Their refusal feels calm because it is not fueled by anger. They understand that preserving inner equilibrium allows them to act justly, speak truthfully, and give compassionately. Without boundaries, burnout masquerades as dedication. Exhaustion masquerades as loyalty. Silence masquerades as peace. Yet beneath these disguises, character weakens. Discipline fades. Clarity blurs. Eventually, suppressed frustration erupts in ways far less graceful than a simple early refusal would have been. Boundaries prevent explosions by honoring early signals. They require self-awareness. You must recognize what violates your principles. You must notice when your energy depletes. You must identify behaviors that erode respect. This awareness demands honesty with yourself before you ever speak to others. It demands that you value your inner stability enough to protect it. Virtue is sustainable only when protected. When you guard your time, you preserve focus. When you guard your values, you preserve integrity. When you guard your emotional space, you preserve compassion. Far from isolating you, these protections enable deeper, healthier engagement. You interact not from depletion, but from strength. Strength expressed through boundaries is quiet yet unmistakable. It does not need aggression to validate itself. It does not need applause to confirm itself. It simply remains consistent. And in that consistency, it shields the most precious elements of your character from erosion, from manipulation, from exhaustion, ensuring that your virtue remains intact, resilient, and authentically yours in every interaction you encounter. Agreeableness is not the same as goodness. The two may appear similar from a distance, like twin silhouettes at sunset, but approach closely and their differences become undeniable. Agreeableness smiles quickly, nods frequently, yields instinctively. Goodness evaluates carefully, speaks deliberately, stands firmly. One seeks smooth interactions. The other seeks moral alignment. One avoids friction. The other accepts friction when truth requires it. Agreeableness is a social lubricant. It keeps conversations pleasant and atmospheres light. It minimizes tension and maximizes comfort. In moderation, it is graceful and useful. Yet when elevated above principle, it becomes a disguise. It becomes the habit of saying what is welcome rather than what is right. It becomes the reflex of softening convictions to avoid resistance. It becomes the art of blending in at the expense of standing up. Goodness is heavier. It carries responsibility. It asks difficult questions before offering easy approval. It considers consequences beyond immediate harmony. It is less concerned with being liked and more concerned with being just. Goodness is not hostile, yet it is not endlessly accommodating. It understands that pleasing everyone is neither possible nor virtuous. An agreeable person may avoid disagreement to preserve peace. A good person may enter disagreement to preserve truth. This distinction matters profoundly. If you equate goodness with agreeableness, you will measure your morality by how comfortable others feel around you. You will interpret conflict as failure. You will interpret disapproval as wrongdoing. You will interpret tension as evidence that you have erred. Yet often, tension is merely the byproduct of honesty colliding with expectation. Agreeableness prioritizes emotional temperature. Goodness prioritizes ethical temperature. Imagine witnessing injustice in a room where everyone remains politely silent. The agreeable instinct whispers, "Do not disrupt the atmosphere." Goodness whispers, "Do not betray your conscience." The agreeable instinct fears awkwardness. Goodness fears complicity. One protects comfort. The other protects integrity. Agreeableness is reactive. It adjusts itself according to the personalities present. It reads the room and reshapes its tone. It avoids statements that might provoke challenge. It smooths edges before they are even tested. Goodness is rooted. It adapts in method but not in principle. It listens respectfully yet remains anchored. It considers perspectives yet does not abandon standards. There is a seductive reward in being known as agreeable. People describe you as easygoing, pleasant, cooperative. Doors open because you do not threaten equilibrium. Invitations arrive because you rarely oppose. Yet beneath that pleasant exterior, something subtle can begin to erode. You may notice a growing distance between your spoken words and your private thoughts. You may feel the quiet fatigue of constant self-editing. You may sense the weight of unexpressed convictions accumulating within. Goodness does not require constant confrontation, but it does require congruence. Congruence is the alignment between what you believe and how you behave. When you consistently suppress disagreement to maintain likability, congruence fractures. When you affirm what you internally reject, integrity weakens. The fracture may be invisible to others, but it is unmistakable to you. Agreeableness asks, "Will this upset them?" Goodness asks, "Is this true?" Agreeableness calculates reactions. Goodness evaluates righteousness. This does not mean goodness is abrasive. It does not delight in conflict. It does not seek argument for sport. Rather, it accepts that virtue sometimes unsettles. It accepts that clarity can feel sharp. It accepts that boundaries can disappoint. Yet it chooses these outcomes when necessary, because it understands that superficial harmony built on dishonesty is fragile. There is also a danger in confusing kindness with agreeableness. Kindness is intentional benevolence guided by wisdom. Agreeableness is habitual compliance guided by avoidance. Kindness may say no gently. Agreeableness struggles to say no at all. Kindness considers long-term well-being. Agreeableness considers immediate approval. If a friend makes destructive choices, agreeableness may offer silent tolerance to avoid discomfort. Goodness may offer honest concern despite potential resistance. If a colleague behaves unethically, agreeableness may remain neutral to preserve reputation. Goodness may raise objection despite personal risk. In these moments, the divergence becomes undeniable. Agreeableness preserves image. Goodness preserves character. Image is external and fragile. Character is internal and enduring. When you prioritize image, you become dependent on perception. When you prioritize character, you become anchored in principle. The former fluctuates with audience. The latter remains steady across contexts. To choose goodness over agreeableness requires courage. It requires the willingness to be misunderstood. It requires the resilience to endure temporary isolation. It requires confidence that moral clarity outweighs social convenience. This courage does not roar. It steadies. It does not dominate. It persists. There will be seasons when agreeableness appears advantageous. You may gain faster approval, smoother interactions, fewer confrontations. Yet over time, a life constructed purely on agreeableness feels thin. It lacks the depth that comes from principled stands. It lacks the strength that comes from defended values. It lacks the self-respect that emerges when your actions mirror your beliefs. Goodness, though sometimes costly, yields solidity. It builds trust that is rooted in authenticity rather than charm. It attracts relationships that value sincerity over compliance. It cultivates self-assurance that does not dissolve when disagreement arises. When you detach your identity from constant agreeableness, you rediscover your voice. Your words gain weight because they are not tailored for universal approval. Your agreements become meaningful because they are not automatic. Your refusals become dignified because they are not reactive. You begin to understand that morality is not measured by how rarely you disturb others, but by how faithfully you uphold what is right. You learn that peace achieved through silence is brittle, while peace achieved through honesty is resilient. You realize that true goodness sometimes risks tension to prevent deeper harm. Agreeableness seeks to be liked. Goodness seeks to be just. And in choosing justice over popularity,